hanging out on a Tuesday when the restaurant's closed. So Piccolo is 3 years old now, and it is my brainchild, I guess. Accumulation of almost 20 years of time spent in kitchens in the city. I had, at a fairly young age, opened a restaurant called Raga that lasted just shy of 10 years and closed in 2008, I think. And then spent a couple years figuring out, what it is, that I wanted to do, if I still wanted to do this, and what I would do differently. And Piccolo is kind of that. Menu-wise, I was tired of being constricted to a salad, soup, starter format, and then some of the unbalance in restaurant design when designing a menu and designing plates. In a traditional menu, you would have to, you'd have to have your appetizers, and it's designed so that people can come in and spend a little bit of money or a lot, but you've got to keep them captive enough for a certain period of time. And you've got entrees that have way more food than anyone should eat, and that's got this fake price point on it. And it just was a sham to me that you had to go through that. And from a creative perspective, it was so much more fun to create appetizers and starters. Just because they were a truer form, they didn't have the constraints of an entree that had to be, 6 ounces of protein and a vegetable and a garnish, protein and this and that, and all these things that you have to throw on a plate to charge the money that you have to charge, to justify that. And it was just this whole dog, chasing its tail kind of thing. And at some point in time, tasting menus became popular, and everything was kind of pared down proportionately in size. And I think I became very good at them. I could cook. I could start with a blank plate and create multiple courses for people at will. So I kind of took that energy and decided, to create a restaurant and a menu that stripped itself of all that. There were no categories. Everything was approximately the same size and the same value, and at the same time focusing on things like pig's feet, livers, gizzards, all the offal, and all the things that no one really ever let me cook before. So Piccolo is that energy of always wanting to cook something I've never cooked before, or always cooking it in a way that I've never cooked it before, and just changing things. For me, the process happened, we go through it about every 7 weeks or 8 weeks, the menu changes. And usually what happens is, it's kind of in the back of my mind, and I'm thinking about it, just kind of subconsciously, and then I write. And then for a week, I'll write 80 or 90% of the menu, and then it stops. And then I have to play this kind of game of the menu's going to change. I'm committed to changing the menu, but I don't have everything down yet. So that last 10 days is kind of where some of the smaller details happen. I think this last menu, there was one dish that went to the morning of the menu change the day before. I think there's a balance of, sometimes if you have too much time, you overthink things. And it's sometimes when you don't have time, when you can't think about it, you just have to change it, that there's true sparks of genius or whatever. So that's kind of my process, generally speaking. And then, why I do it or how I do it, I think when I started cooking, we ran daily specials, and it was really instilled upon me to never repeat a special. So, at a very tender age, I was kind of pushed into this constantly thinking, or that's what I do every day. I have to call it a special every day. And I think I like the creative world because sometimes it's so much more interesting and way more fun than the real world. When I can kind of get in my head and create things, you're making things up that you've never done before, and it's way more fun than kind of hard world of you got to pay your bills and due dates are this. I think I get inspired while I'm here. Again, sometimes it's compartmentalizing things, and sometimes I block out what's happening here and now and allow myself to kind of free float or see things around and open myself up to inspiration. But I think most of it happens, for the most part, it has to be at home, alone. That there has to be a certain intimacy or safety where I can just kind of stop and start thinking. But I think, again, in that process of, I collect things, throw them up in the air in my head, and then when I get to that safe place or menu ready time, then I can kind of sort through the files and slowly kind of put pieces in their place. So I know, some of it is seasonal based. I know that right now, nettles are going to be around, and then ramps. And so I know the seasons a little bit, but then it's also, what have I never really worked with, or what haven't I been able to work with? And once I figure out, like Octopus. Octopus has become a bit of a recurring thing because I've never really been able to work with it in the way that I wanted to. I've never been able to showcase it. I love Octopus. It's delicious. And because of our format menu-wise, I can take smaller pieces of either stronger flavored or stronger textured things and incorporate them into dishes without overwhelming and overpowering. So, I can do a fish course that octopus is the focus, and I've never been able to do that anywhere else. So, it's like, okay, octopus. Okay, so, you've got the physical constraints of an octopus. It's got its 8 tentacles and, shape, size. There's inconsistencies within the tentacle, so I have to figure out, how do I incorporate and use the entire tentacle? What do I do? Is the head usable? Can I incorporate that somehow or hide that somewhere in the dish? I can make stock out of it. Do I incorporate that? So then, every dish has, or every protein or whatever vegetable that you're working with has those, the attributes that you have to work within. If it's green, I can only cook it so far, else it'll turn brown. There's physical constraints to everything that you work with. So it's trying to figure out how you can either manipulate that, use it to your advantage, or showcase it. We get the octopus in, we play around with it a little bit, we cook it, and again, that's when we started playing with the head. First thing you do as a cook when you have an octopus is, either you cut off the tentacles before or after you cook it, but the head goes in the garbage, and it's that, like, why does it go in the garbage? Because it's a head? That's not a very good reason. So we started kind of, pureeing it into kind of a force meat and putting it in pastas. A little squid ink in there, because octopus ink. But then we ended up with, all this braising liquid. And in a way, braising liquid was almost better than the octopus itself. So we reduce it down and we bag it up and freeze it. And that starts to stockpile. And the menu that we have now there's an octopus bisque. So we've taken all that liquid that we've been saving for 3 months and turning it into a soup. And then we have octopus that we still cook off, and the tentacles we fry for a bit of texture and some olives, and that's kind of the base of the soup. And in a way, the octopus soup is way better than, on some level, the octopus dishes, where the octopus is the predominant thing. I would say, two events for me, restaurant-wise. Both of them happened in Spain. The first time was on our honeymoon in 2001. We went to Barcelona, went up into the Basque region, and ate at a restaurant called Arzac in San Sebastian. And I mean, it was crazy. Just so, being in Spain in 2001 was a unique experience. I think they had just kind of started to import stuff, so everything kind of moved from that Italian to Spanish. So like pimenton, smoked paprika, and dried good chorizos I tried for the first time, 8 months earlier. Lomos and all these kind of new flavors. So I was highly inspired by Spain at the time. So this is the rabbit. So that's the rabbit loin. That's the belly. And then the 2 rear legs sandwiched, and then we make a little farce with veal, rabbit liver, and then fill in all the holes. Where there isn't necessarily a right or a wrong. It's kind of an emotion that you want to convey. So, like there's a book, the Chef's Bible or something like that, where it goes through and says, well, this goes good with this, this, and this. And I think that's a real cop-out. Because it's like dressing yourself. It really is a personal decision. And where do you want the dish to go? So, I think if you break it down to, like fatty things go well with acidic things, because the acid will cut the fat and that kind of stuff. I think there's some legitimacy to that. But, it's taste. And set it with agar-agar so that it gels. So lucky to be able to not only be able to do what I do, but to do it in a way that it's shits and giggles. Again, we have a lucha libre mask that we put on and jump around in. We get to listen to music all day and tell dirty jokes and eat and taste these amazing things and have these amazing smells. There's a lot of stress and hard work and, unpleasantries too, but it's fantastic.